Hello pandas of the internet, my name is Panda-chan. I'm a full-time artist-ish, a part-time cosplayer, and yet again I will be your guide through a solo ttrpg adventure. As stated in my older videos, the unbelievable amount of solo ttrpg content was acquired during a charity event, Solo But Not Alone, which raises money for the Jasper's Game Day charity. The charity aims to prevent suicide by funding education, outreach, and support so that everyone knows that they are not a critical failure. I will leave a link to the charity in the description, and although the Solo But Not Alone fundraiser is over, I do hope that you get a chance to check it out next time. That being said, today's game is With My Last Undying Breath. So, let's get into it. With My Last Undying Breath was made by Kiena Xiao, and I did get permission to make this video, but all my opinions will be my own, as usual. In this game, you play as a vampire, trying to write down your life story and your last memories as you wait for the hunter to find you and end your life. To play, you will need a 6-sided die, which is a change of pace from the previous 2 games we played, which utilized playing and tarot cards. The game is played within a 1-hour time limit, so we will have to keep track of this during the game itself, and as usual, we will need something to write with. Now for the content warnings. With My Last Undying Breath explores themes of impending death, with the player character's death acting as an integral and inevitable part of the game. So I will make sure to proceed with caution, but as always, I like to keep it light. That being said, who doesn't like vampires with their dramatic and tragic existence? So let's get into the game itself. My name is Clara. Or at least, this is what I go by at this time. I have had many names over the centuries. I can hardly recall the one I was given at birth. But that is what time does to one's mind. It erodes the memories and leaves nothing. But then again, I am oh so different from the person I was before. It was part of a ritual, you know, me being turned. I became part of a cult whose name was forgotten just as quickly as it was named. The goal was to become immortal, and to some extent, some of us did. But not many lived to tell this tale. Humans are fascinating. They hold so much creativity in them. They innovate so quickly and march forward no matter what. I suppose that is why I hold some fondness for them, even if they are at best a meal and at worst a threat to me. I truly don't know who I'm trying to write this down for. Perhaps it's simply to try and leave a mark on the world. Now that I'm leaving it, perhaps for the hunter that is now in my halls, searching for me, to show her I am, or at least I was, an individual. Speaking of her, Victoria, I'm fairly certain that is your name. We have never met, you don't know me personally, but you know my reputation. Your family has tried to hunt me for generations, so I'm certain they have filled your head with stories of my terrors and infamy. I'm sure you have a drive to fulfill your family's legacy, to be the one that finally slays the terrible beast. I'm fairly certain that you will succeed. After all, victory is in your name, and I have no intentions to run, let alone fight. So, I implore you to at least heed my dying wishes and read this to the end. I must apologize in advance. I will be scattered as my memory is not what it used to be, and I have oh so many tales to tell, and for the first time in a while, oh so little time. The first memory that I think of when I think back on my long life is the time I was tired of my vampiric life. So I pretended to be a human again. I took up a post at an orphanage. I think that was when I rediscovered my love for humanity, my admiration for their creativity, that absolute joy I could feel in those moments. I can't say it was not difficult sustaining myself on a solely non-human diet, but I managed it, and the time I spent teaching, encouraging and moulding the youth, I do think it was worth it. It was a bittersweet period in my life, but I do still have some art from the children. Time has weathered it, and all of the children have become adults and died by now, but the art is what I hold dear for the longest time. It was truly difficult to hide my vampiric nature. Children were, and still are, a curiosity-driven bunch. The slightest slip-up and there were a dozen tiny eyes on me with a myriad of questions. I must admit I did hypnotize them on occasion, which I was not proud of, but that time, for the briefest of moments, I could delude myself into believing that I was human again. That memory actually reminded me of something. I felt such hope and joy during something so simple as caring for the young and yearning for the simple life, which was drastically opposed to the time in my life when I was one of the most powerful people. Did you know I used to rule a country? Well, at least I was the one pulling the strings. I was ambitious, and my vampiric powers were quite unmatched at the time, so none could match me, none can compete. But my head was filled with anxiety and fear that at any moment someone could tear the spider web thin threads that I have created, that at any moment I could misstep, or the king would misspeak, or that he would tear from my control and I would be left with nothing. So I took as much of the wealth as I could justify. I manipulated court opinions, I misled, I organized and plotted, and ensured that I could orchestrate a graceful leave with a fortune gained. The other advisors did not like a woman commanding so much of the king's attention. They hated the fact that my word was law. Little did they know that the king had no other option than to agree and do as told. A vampire's hypnosis is a strong tool after all. So many out for my blood and aiming for my head. How fortunate for you that I outlived them, and you get the honor of dealing the final blow. Do you want to know how your family began to hunt me, little hunter? It is a sad and painful story, one that I have kept to myself for far too long. When your family name was just 3 or 4 generations old, there was a girl born, Eliza. She was the most beautiful and elegant creature I have ever encountered. She appeared as though carved from marble. Her laugh could capture the room. We met at a ball. At the time I went by a different name. Anna, I think? We talked for hours. We danced in the moonlight of the garden, away from the chattering and suffocating crowds. And after the ball, we would write letters to each other, meet often, and enjoy each other's company. Then it happened. I was reckless and did not eat for far too long. It was far too late when I realized that fact. We were having tea at Eliza's estate, and I got hungry. I have never felt such hunger in my life. It was more horrible than when I was first turned, and the only person around was her, Eliza. She noticed something was wrong and tried doing everything in her power to help, but I was blinded by my hunger and could not stop myself. I lost a person I loved so deeply, and when I was discovered with her lifeless body, I fled. For years I hoped that she miraculously survived, or that I managed to turn her, but the ritual was not complete. So I gained a lifelong enemy in your family, my little hunter. Isn't that sad? I do still remember the time I was turned. It's strange. It was such a painful and unpleasant experience, and yet I felt so at peace. You see, Victoria, when you come from nothing and you have nothing to lose, it is surprisingly easy to believe anyone that happens to tell you that they can change your life for the better. The cult was insane. They worshipped demons and spread nonsense about a changing world order. I suppose I proved them right some centuries later when I pulled the strings of a country. But you read that story before. The ritual itself was a disaster. Everyone was panicking and unsure of the proper steps to take. I was one of the first 4 to be chosen to be turned, and the happiness I felt when I learned this was immeasurable. The flaw in the leader's plans was to turn 4 people at once, because a newly born vampire is hungry, and 4 of them, well, you can imagine. We were insatiable. This is why I mentioned that the cult faded out just as soon as it was formed. There were no survivors. Every last one of the cultists were torn to pieces. We indulged, we drank, we celebrated, and we scattered to the 4 winds. Did you know, a decade or so ago, the last of my siblings was killed. He was a strong and determined vampire. I truly never thought that out of all of us, I would be the last one left. So I suppose I am completely alone now. I have lost my love centuries ago. I have ended the people who made me. I have outlived the children I raised, and now I have no siblings left. If there was a time to feel sadness and despair, it is now. So I called you here to my manor to end my life. I can hear your steps, so I do not think I have time to write another story for you to read. Oh, how I wish I could. I do have a couple of pages left. I implore you to look through my libraries, to see my collection of art, and to... With a creak, my study door opens, so it would seem that the hunter found me at last. It seems fitting to die here amongst the collection of stories. I am not at all frightened, although I wish I had enough time to finish one more entry before I am forever gone. I turn to Victoria with a smile and implore her to read what I have written once I am dead. I don't even move from my seat as she swiftly ends my immortal existence. She walks away, scanning the journal entries I have left. The origins of her family's profession will probably stay with the little hunter for the rest of her life. Well, that was a lot of fun. I never played a game that imposed a time limit on me like this. It was a bit nerve-wracking, and I totally expected not to be able to finish all 6 entries because I am a bit slow with writing and need time to think things through a bit. But I did manage to get through 4.5, which is more than half. At the same time, I felt like I didn't get as much as I wanted from each entry since I was rushing a bit. The rules and prompts were really minimalistic, and I felt like I had a bit more trouble anchoring myself to the character this time around, but it was a really fun experience in creating a story within a tense, limited time frame. I, again, could not help but include a bit of romance because I feel like it's a must in a vampire story. The art was also really fun to make. I wanted it to look a bit like a Victorian lady, elegant but deadly. I do hope you enjoyed. I will leave the link to the game as well as the Jasper's Game Day in the description, but with that, I'll remind you to subscribe, like, and leave a comment telling me what your favorite vampire from fiction is, and I hope you'll check in next time.